सदाशिवसमारम्भाम् शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
ॐ सहना
ॐ
भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. Good morning. Okay, so before we start, I have to say that there will be a small disturbance in the middle because the cook will come. My wife is not at home. And the cook is like Yamraj, we don't know when she comes. And again like Yamraj, when she comes, you have to go. So I have to go and open the door for her. Okay, so that won't take very long. The disturbance will be there. Okay, so let us go on to we were discussing the seventh verse. We have not finished the seventh verse. So we are on the seventh verse, 13th chapter. So we'll chant. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
श्रीभगवानुवाच
Amanitvamadambhitvam
अमानित्वं मदम्भित्वम्
Hinsa Shantirarjavam
अहिंसा
अहिंसा
शान्तिरार्जवम्
शान्तिरार्जवम्
Acharyopasanam Shaucham
आचार्योपासनं
आचार्योपासनं
शौचं
शौचं
Airyam Atmavinigraha.
धैर्यमात्मविनिग्रहः
धैर्यमात्मविनिग्रहः।
So we have not yet finished the first line of this verse. We had finished Amanitvam, Adambhitvam, Ahimsa, and Shanti. So we have to go to Arjavam. So I'll move on to that. Arjavam is a word very often used in Shastram. It means alignment. And so alignment of your entire personality, harmony in your personality. So Kaika, Vachika, and Manasa. Your thoughts, your words, and your deeds, they are all in harmony. So you are a straightforward person. So Arjava means straightforwardness, alignment of all the three personalities. So I'll just mute you all because somebody is cooking. All right. So, in fact, there is a small little, verse also which talks about this. It says, Manasyekam, Vachasyekam, Karmasyekam, Mahatmanam. The Mahatma is that person, Manasyekam, Vachasyekam, Karmasyekam. The mind, the Vachaha, the words, and Karmaha, the actions. So mind can be taken as thoughts. Thoughts, words, actions, Ekam. That person is Mahatmana. Mahatma. And Manasi Anyat, Vachasi Anyat, Karmani Anyat, Duratmana. The person whose thoughts are one, words are another, and karma is a third. He is called a Duratmanam. He is not a great person at all. Right? Now, why is this such an important idea? Because when there are conflicting thoughts and conflicting words and conflicting, actions, you will feel the strain. Right? So if this particular virtue is not developed, maybe you won't feel the strain immediately, but a gradual build-up will be there. And that's why in Ramayana they show Ravana as 10 heads. So 10 heads means multiple personalities. His thoughts are 10, his words are 10, his actions are 20. The lack of arjava. And you can, start training for this in very, very small ways. For example, let us say that you are coming to class. Punctuality, right? You should be there at least 1 minute before the class starts. And if you are going to be late or not going to be present, you should be informing. The same thing applies to you're going to a friend's place. So if you are not able to, it's a good thing to be punctual. If you're going to a friend's place and you have said, I'll come at 8 o'clock, you should be there at 1 minute to 8. But if you are not, and if you are going to be late, traffic, etc., call up and say, okay, fine, don't wait for me, I'll be so late. So this all indicates the fact that you are able to harmonize all your actions, thoughts, and deeds. So this arjavam. You should be saying what you think, and you should be doing what you have said. That is arjavam. Then we move on to the next line, second line. Acharyopasanam. That is Acharya Upasanaha. Worship of the Acharya, reverence towards the teacher. Now again, remember here that when you say Acharyopasanam, worship of the Acharya, it's a tradition in our scriptures that the Shishya worships the Acharya. But one should never think that the worship, when you fall at the feet of your teacher, don't think you are falling at the feet of that person who's a teacher. The worship never goes to the person, never goes to the RC. Because as a person, remember your teacher, however great he is, whoever is the greatest teacher in the world, as a person, he bears the same limitations as any other person in this universe. And the worship cannot go towards the teacher. Worship has to go towards the jnanam, the knowledge, the shastric jnanam which the teacher possesses. And the shastric jnanam is what? It's nothing but the Vedas. And therefore, when you fall at the feet of your teacher, when you do now Shastang Namaskara to your teacher, you are actually not looking at the teacher as a person at all. You are looking at the teacher as a repository of the Shastra Jnanam. Shastra Jnanam is Vedas. Therefore, your Acharya Namaskara is basically Veda Namaskara. You are paying your obeisances to the Vedas. And who is the author of the Vedas? Author of the Vedas is Ishvara alone. And therefore, your Acharya Upasanam basically is Ishvara Upasana only. You have to do the Upasana with this bhava, with this particular attitude. If you do it saying that my teacher is a great person, you are finite, he is finite, nothing much is going to happen. Right? Now, why is this Acharya Upasanam harped upon? Because it is Veda Upasanam. Veda is a pramanam. And whatever Veda says, we accept as valid knowledge. Is it not? That's why we call it pramanam. The first qualification for coming to the Bhagavad Gita is basically pramanam. You accept what Krishna says. Therefore, when you accept what the Veda says as valid knowledge, this accepting capacity is called Shraddha. Why do you have to accept? Because remember that much of what the Veda says is not Laukika. For example, Veda says that you do good deeds, you get punya. There is no pratyaksha pramanam for this. There is no anumana pramanam for this. The only pramanam is what? Pramanam is Veda. Veda says if you generate enough punyam, you can go to Swarga. There is no, pratyaksha pramanam. You have never seen a person who has come from Swarga and says, oh yes, I did a lot of good deeds and I went to Swarga. No. You have to accept what Veda says. That capacity to accept as valid knowledge what cannot be cross-checked with any other pramana, that is called Shraddha. And therefore this Acharya Upasana helps you to develop Veda Upasana, which helps you to develop Shraddha. Therefore, it is the duty of the student to do Acharya Upasana. Remember that many people, many students, they feel uncomfortable when someone comes to touch their legs. Many teachers feel very uncomfortable when a student comes to fall at their legs because they think it's a show of ego on the part of the teacher. Why should I be so egoistic as to ask for a prostration, right? But remember that Shastra prescribes it. So here, of course, Krishna is prescribing it, but Krishna borrows from Shastra only. And therefore, whenever you all become teachers, the correct thing to do is, of course, you should never ask for a namaskara. The teacher should never ask for namaskara. But if the student wants to do, never refuse. And then you might say, okay, supposing I don't refuse the namaskara, will it not make me egoistic? Yes, it will. If you accept it as your due, don't accept the namaskara as something due to you. Accept it as something due to the jnanam which has been passed on to you by your guru. And therefore, pass on the namaskara to the guru. What will the guru do? He will pass on to his guru. What he'll do, he will pass on to his guru. And finally, it will reach where? It will reach the author of the Vedas, Easwaran. So that's the methodology for accepting namaskara. You should not refuse a namaskara. As a teacher, you should never refuse a namaskara. You should never ask also. But remember that receiving it in the right attitude, that it is given to me because actually it belongs to my guru only, because he is the one who taught me. And then similarly, a guru will pass it on. So that is Acharya Pasanam. Then the next one is Shaucham. Shaucham is purity. So purity can be at three levels, of course: actions, words, and thoughts. So therefore, purity is external and internal. And Shankara in his commentary adds very nicely: Mrid Jalabhyam Pralakshanam. Washing the body with mrid and jalam. Mrid is mud and water. Jalam is water. So Pralakshanam is washing. It is like washing the body with mud and water. Okay, now you might say, why mud? You have to think about uh, the environment in which this was said. Okay, there comes my lady, so I will just give me a few minutes. Okay, so I'm back. So as I was saying, Shankara defines it as Mrid Jalabhyam Pralakshanam, washing the body with mud and water. You might say, why mud? Because remember that those days there was no soap. So, and you use the mud to clean mud actually. Because body is what? Prithvi only, right? So mud was used to clean mud. Of course, even now you use mud, right? Where do you use mud today? Ladies?
In the pots,
The spa.
the pots.
Multani
In that-
mitti.
Multani mitti.
Multani
Multani mitti on the face.
I'm talking about the mud packs, right?
Yeah.
Mud is available in a pot, but you go to the parlor and you pay a bomb over there. So mud is still being used. Okay. Then styrium. Styrium is the next one, which is willpower, perseverance. So any work which we take will naturally have obstacles. Okay, some of them will be real obstacles, some of them will be not so real or imagined obstacles. But styrium means that capacity to take any obstacle at face value and work on it, try to get over the obstacle. So here Shankara adds, saying that you should not take this as commitment for firm commitment of willpower for normal daily work. You have to take it as a willpower for Atma Jnana, right? So he says very clearly, you have to take it as the perseverance to work towards Atma Jnanam in the face of any obstacle. So he uses the word in his commentary, Adhyavasayatvam. Does that remind you of something? He wants to remind us of something. So he uses the word Adhyavasayatvam.
Vyavasayatmika
व्यवसायात्मिका
buddhi.
बुद्धि.
Very good. Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi. So that is the commitment to remain on the right path and knowing at all times what is the next step and what is the final destination. So the Sthairyam is that. Then the last word of this particular verse, Atma Vinigraha. Vinigraha is control or mastery, self-mastery. The mastery of all the tools that I have. And what are the tools that I have? My body, mind, and sense organs. So simple questions I can ask myself. In the face of some provocation, can I hold my tongue, handle my tongue, or do I say anything at all? And then afterwards regret it, after having caused the pain. And on the other hand, the tongue has two functions. One is talking and one is tasting. So can I manage my tasting tongue? That is one thing. Can I manage my mind? Can I manage my own emotions? And if I cannot manage myself at all, how can I hope to manage anything in life? And that is why the one of the primary, sadhanas is self-management. You have to learn to manage yourself. Can you sit in meditation for 30 minutes? If I tell my body, I'm going to sit here for 30 minutes, will it listen? More importantly, will my mind listen? When I sit in class for 1 hour, I've been in class for maybe 5 years now. So have I trained my mind? Earlier on, it used to be focused for 5 minutes. Am I able to focus for at least 30 minutes before the mind is distracted? Right? So many things. So mastering mind, developing attention spans, focusing capacity, all these things are there in the self-mastery. And of course, to a certain extent, subject to prarabdha, keeping your body in good shape. Remember, whatever you do, however much yoga you do, finally someday will come when your body will start giving you problems. Can you have the fortitude to accept that problem as my prarabdha and still continue to do whatever you can do? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so these are all things which, especially all of us who are older and people like me who have been, practicing yoga for ages together. And quite frankly, at one point of time, we thought, wow, my body is great. Suddenly, your body gives a kick in you, kick in. You realize it's not all that great. What is your mental capacity to understand that? FIR, do you have that or not? And therefore, how are you able to basically handle your raga dvesha, right? So remember that everybody has raga dvesha. Everybody has raga dvesha. Some of them may be in keeping with dharma, maybe dharmic, no problem there. Some of them will be not against dharma. Then if I have raga dveshas which are opposed dharma, am I able to handle them? Because a person who acts purely according to raga dvesha has a name in the Vedas, in the scriptures. It is called Prakrita Purushaha, more animal than human. But as a human, before acting in accordance with raga dvesha, I should ask a few questions. Is this raga dharmic or adharmic? It can even be dvesha, right? Is the dvesha dharmic or dharmic? Dvesha is rarely dharmic. And if they are dharmic, what is the benefit to me by giving in to them? Will they help me in my spiritual growth? Right? Even dharmic activity, remember, can become a big obstacle for moksha. How? By taking away time from your Vedanta. So, for example, Panchamahayagya, which we saw in chapter 4, they are or chapter 3. They are all very dharmic because Veda prescribes them. But if 95% of your time is spent in Panchamahayagya, where is the time for Shravanam? And therefore it's obstacle. Right? All these questions are good to ask. And therefore your mind itself should never become an obstacle. You should remember 6th chapter. Manatmanam natmanam avasadayet. Atmeva hyatmano bandhu. Atmeva ripuratmanaha. A mind which is not controlled, acting freely on your ragadvesha is Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha is the enemy. On the other hand, Atmaiva hi Atmano Bandhu. If your mind is controlled, it is your friend also. Therefore, your body and mind and sense complex, body, mind and sense organs, they should be made your friend. How? Shankara says, Nirodha, control, regulate. And regulate what? Swabhavena sarvataha pravrittihi. All the thoughts, the actions which are driven by swabhavena, your natural ragadvesha, you should control and regulate them. How? Sanmarga eva. Turn to the spiritual path. So very, very good piece of advice. Keep your Vedanta as a goal. Keep your moksha as a goal. And then regulate your ragadveshas. It is easier to not act according to a strong raga if you have an even stronger raga. The strongest raga should be moksha. Any questions? We go to verse number 8. Indriyartheshu vairagyam
Indriyarteshu
Artheshu
vairagyam
vairagyam
anahankara evacha
anahankara
anahankara eva
evacha
cha
janma mrityu jara vyadhi
Janma mrityu
janma
jara
mrityu jara
vyadhihi
vyadhihi
dukha doshanudarshanam.
dukkhadoshanu
doshananu
Swadoshanudarshanam.
darshanam.
So Krishna continues, Indriyartheshu vairagyam. So, what does it mean? Shankara adds very helpfully, Shabdadishu drishta adrishteshu bhogeshu vairagyam. So you can understand Shabdadihi. Shabdadihi refers to what? What do you know?
Shabdasparsha Roop.
Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, Rupa, Gandha. Right? Therefore, Shabdadi doesn't refer to Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. It refers to the objects of Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, Rupa, Gandha. Whichever you develop raga towards the objects only. Therefore, Shabdadishu, you have to take it as objects of the five sense organs. Right? And Vairagyam is freedom from raga, and just as important, freedom from dvesha also, which means mastering of the jnanendriyani, through which inputs from the external world are received. So jnanendriyani are those organs where we receive inputs, and karmendriyani are those organs where in accordance with the input we do an expression, we express ourselves, we respond. Right? So for all ordinary interactions, remember, you require these organs in Jnanendriya and Karmendriya, and spiritual sadhana also you require these organs. But here we have to make sure that these organs are under your control and you are not under their control. So this is called Indriya Nigraha. It can also be called Indriya Jayaha. Indriya Nigraha means control of the Indriyas. Indriya Jayaha means victory over the Indriyas. What is it called in Tattva-bodha? Damaha. What is it called in Yoga Shastra? That's not really. Right?
Yeah. Pratyahara.
Pratyahara. Okay, so this, we must learn to connect all these words. They're all very good for mananam. And if the sense organs have to be under our control, remember that we have to be constantly alert. Why constantly alert? Because your sense organs are in constant touch with sense objects. And therefore, whatever input comes, that you can't help, right? When the sense organs come into contact with any object, there will be input. And when the same object again and again comes into contact with the sense organs, remember that raga will develop. And therefore, every organ is prone to develop attachment to particular sense objects. And that is what Krishna said when he said, Indriyartheshu. Every organ has the inbuilt potential to develop attachment. But what happens, supposing you allow the sense organs to function without control, indiscriminately? What happens? First, they begin to function, you are in their control. Later on, they begin to get control, they begin to demand. Therefore, pamper your sense organs, and sooner or later, you will be the slave of the sense organs. And that's what Krishna said in chapter 2. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. The most powerful mind can be taken away by the prasabham, by prasabham, can be taken away by this powerful sense organs. Indriyani pramathini haranti. It takes away. Even the mind of a jnani can be moved if he is not careful. And therefore, whatever Veda prescribes the way of tapas, vratam, etc., remember they are all meant for making sure that your mind doesn't become a slave to your sense organ. It is I who should decide what my sense organ should experience, not the other way around. It's like when you see a man walking with the dog, in the mornings. So some days you wonder whether the man is the main person, the dog is the main person. Who is leading whom? And therefore you should decide what the sense organs do, not the sense organs. And when you say that I am dispassionate, vairagyam, the word over here, dispassion, detachment. Remember that it doesn't mean hatred, it doesn't mean dislike. You cannot equate the word vairagyam with hatred or dislike. Though, for example, I think in Malayalam, the word is used in that context. That is not the real meaning of the word. The meaning is detachment. What is that outlook which I have when I say I have got vairagyam? I mean that I look upon everything that I can use. Any tool that I can use, which means the world, family, money, power, whatever I have, is a tool for what? For moksha. And therefore, moksha is the end objective. None of the tools are the end objective. Therefore, world is not my final objective. Money is not my final objective. Power is not my final objective. My wife and children are also not my final objective. A very hard idea to what you call digest. But the fact remains, as a Vedantic seeker, your final objective is only moksha. Okay. So, Indriyartheshu vairagyam anahankaraha. Ahankara is having an ego, having self-conceit. So, anahankara means freedom from self-conceit. Now, if you have been following this carefully, you should know note that there is a repetition in the possible repetition in the last verse and in this word ahankara. Anahankara. What is it?
Amanitva. Amanitva.
Adambitvam.
Amanitvam. Right? Amanitvam, therefore, and anahankara is a very subtle difference. Amanitvam is freedom from self-importance, self-conceit at the manasika level, at the thought level. Right? And mananam is thinking. At the thought level, therefore, there should be no conceit at all. Anahankara is freedom from conceit at the tongue level, at the vachika level. You shouldn't go around beating your chest and telling everybody you are the greatest. So these three have to be taken together. Amanitvam, anahankara, adambitvam. So amanitvam is freedom from self-conceit at the thought level. Anahankara is freedom from self-conceit at the verbal level. You are not going to be telling everybody how great you are. Right? And adambitvam is freedom from conceit at the kaika level. Not insisting that everybody should worship me. Right? Then, So from this, you have to extract something. The I, when you say I and you refer to the body mind self complex, then glorification or self glorification is prohibited by Shastra. When you say I and you mean the body mind self complex, then self glorification is frowned upon by Shastram because it is not true. But when you say I and you mean consciousness principle Atma, then there is a difference because it has become a fact. Atma is the greatest. Therefore, at the Atma level, when you say I am the greatest, Shastra says, of course you are. What is there? It's not a self-glorification. It is a statement of fact. So this very subtle difference you should note. When people say he is talking too much about himself, you are talking about the body mind sense complex as you. But if you are talking about the greatness of Atma and you say I, then it is not glorification. It is only a statement of fact. Okay. Then Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadihi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. That is the next line. Shastram says that the body is only the means to come to moksha. The body is not an end in itself. Then how should I get vairagyam? So dosha anudarshanam. Darshanam means seeing. Anudarshanam means constantly seeing. So constantly reminding yourself of doshas. Doshas means not masala doshas, okay? Dosha means defects, deficiencies. The problem with identifying with the body as I. You should constantly remind yourself of the problems of the body. And what are these problems? What are these doshas? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha. 5 defects are pointed out, right? What are they? Janma is birth. Body is born, body dies. Mrityu is death. Jara, then body grows old and weak. Vyadihi, body has various sorts of illnesses. And dukkha, the mind has got sorrow. Okay? So all these problems basically are dukkham. They are defects of the physical life, of identifying with the body. And therefore you should not be interested in the body too much. Dehabhimanam should be minimal, which is a prerequisite for Atmagnanam. And here Shankara in his commentary gives a very interesting example. How should you do this dosha anudarshanam? How should you constantly remind yourself of the defects of body identification? So he says, okay, you think about the moment when you were born, conceived in your mother's womb, right? You were there for 9 months in a very cramped place, no place to stretch, nothing. Then you came out into the world at birth through a very narrow opening. The narrow opening was not only painful for you because you had to be squeezed through it, but it was painful for the mother also. Yeah, the only difference is the mother can talk about it, but you poor baby, you don't remember, so you can't talk. Right? After coming into the world, are you free of problems? No. There are all sort of pains. You have growing pains, you have diseases, you have injuries, and then when you grow old, there is disrespect, there is insult. So all these are there. And that's why Shankara says, Yavat vitto paljana saktaha, bhavan nija parivaro raktaha, pascha jivati jarjara dehe, varta ko pira prichhati gehe. Remember this? Where is it from?
Bhaj Govindam.
Bhaj Govindam.
Remember the words, right? Yavat vitto parjana saktaha. As long as you are a earning member, bhavan nija parivaro raktaha. Up to that time, your own family will ask about you. Paschat jivati jarjara dehe. Your body has, after your active earning life is over, paschat jivati, you're still living. But jarjara dehe, with a body which is very old and weak. Kopi na pritchati gehe. Vartam kopi na pritchati gehe. You are nobody even in your own house asks for you. And in today's world, when you're very old, the kids will probably dump you in an old age home, right? And even in the old age home, are you free from problems? No, because there you'll fall ill. Last moments of your life, you'll probably be in all sort of pains. You will be in ICU with all sort of tubes sticking out of you. So Shankara says, you are too weak to even speak at that point of time. You are too weak to move anything, even a finger. Contemplate on all these things and then figure out for yourself, does the body deserve any attachment at all? Should you be having Deha Abhiman? So these are not just for the Sunday morning class, okay? We need to be thinking about this later also, if you want this to be really assimilated. Now we go to the 9th verse. Asaktiranabhishvangaha
असक्तिरणभिष्वङ्गः
Utradaragrahadishu
पुत्रदारगृहादिषु
पुत्रदारगृहादिषु
Nityam cha samachittatvam
नित्यं
नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम्
समचित्तत्वम्
Ishtanishthopapattishu.
इष्टानिष्टपत्तिषु
इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु
So the next one is asaktihi. Asaktihi is defined as opposite of sakti, not having sakti. What is sakti? Shankara defines. Sakti, he says, sanga nimitteshu vishayeshu priti matram. Strong liking for objects which are sanga nimitteshu, which are sources of pleasure for you. Therefore, basically, raga. So, sakti is a very strong dislike, a very strong like for things which are giving you pleasure, sources of pleasure. Asakti means it's a mental detachment from that. Sakti attachment to those things. Asakti is mental detachment. So avoidance of becoming a mental slave with regard to any person, or for that matter, any situation or any object also. So that is what is meant here. In the Indriyartheshu Vairagyam is detachment from the point of view, or from the standpoint of the sense organs. Right? That was Indriya Nigraha. Asakti deals with Mano Nigraha. So we saw earlier Indriyartheshu Vairagyam as what? As Damaha. Now we are seeing Asakti as Samaha, Mano Nigraha. Taking the mind away from the object of attachment, which is a much stronger, much more difficult thing to do than Damaha. Right? Sense organs are your external instruments, and therefore they can be controlled relatively easily by Damaha. Supposing you are having an argument with your spouse, you are feeling the anger coming up, right? What do? If you have Samaha, you can continue the discussion without getting angry. But most, spouses, the problem with spouses is what? That after so many years of knowing you, they know which buttons to push. Do you agree? They'll always push the right button to make you angry. And therefore, Sama may not be possible. Therefore, Dhamma is easier because you can just walk away. And then just don't walk away rudely. Just say that I'm getting angry. We'll discuss this later. Go for a long walk and come back. Right? So remember that even if you walk away, the mind continues to have that vasana. So this is a further refinement. We say Dhamma is easy to handle, easier to implement because you can always walk away from an argument, right? But the mind continues to have that vasana over there. And therefore, it's necessary to handle the mind also. How do you handle the mind? You can handle the mind only if you point out the defects of the addiction, of the particular situation, of getting angry, of being addicted to something. Once the mind is mastered, then remember, even if the object is in front of you, there will be no disturbance. So those who have given up smoking, I mean, don't mean given up once and then again taken it up, who have completely given up, they know how difficult it is. For a long time, they stayed away from cigarettes. That was Damaha. But the Vasana remained, and therefore they kept staying away from the cigarette. But after sufficient amount of time, having understood the very big problems associated with smoking cigarettes, having seen the tragedy of people who have got cancer, lung cancer, they have understood. The mind is mastered by having been shown the doshas, the defects. Then when the cigarette is in front of you, you will not be addicted to it. This is tamaha. So until and unless you get that asakti, that samaha, you have to use damaha to physically stay away from tempting situations or situations where you are likely to lose temper, etc. Then the next one is putra dara graha dishohu and anabhashvanga. Okay. So abhishvanga means we would never know, right? So abhishvanga, Shankara tells us, is sakti vishesha, vishesha sakti. So sakti he defined as what? Attachment. So abhishvanga he defines as extreme, vishesha, special, extreme attachment. And anabhishvanga means lack of extreme attachment. That is the meaning of anabhishvanga. Lack of vishesha sakti, lack of extreme attachment. Now you might say, what does extreme attachment mean? So Shankara again comes to our rescue, and he says extreme attachment is in the form of total identification with the person or the object, right? It's a person here. So what does total attachment mean? So he says, when the other person goes through pleasure or pain, what is your thought? If the other person is going through pleasure, you are saying, ahameva sukhihi, I am indeed happy. Or when the other person is going through pain, you are saying, ahameva dukhihi, I am indeed in sorrow. I am indeed in pain. So it is the identification so strong that the other person's experiences you experience. Right? Or he says, when the other person lives or dies, you will say, ahameva jivami marishyami. I am also living, I am also dying. Right? And it's not something just mental, right? You see this in life. I know people who have been married for maybe 70 years. And when one of those partners passes away, you will find that very soon the other one also passes away. That's complete
Yes.
and total identification. That is what he means here. Anamishvangaha. Life is not worthwhile living without the other person. I feel as I am dead because the other person dies. Okay. Why does all this happen? No, I'm not saying that, it's not good to be fond of your partners, okay? But at the back of your mind, there should always be that Vedantic hammer hitting your head that you are Brahman. These are only bodies. And therefore you remember Vasamsi Jirnani Yatha Vihaya Navani Grihnati Naro Parani Tatha Sharirani Vihaya Jirnani Anyani Sanyati Navani Dehi. What does it mean?
Like we
I
wear,
think like
discard your
clothes.
body like clothes.
Exactly. So you put on new clothes and discard new clothes. You, the Jiva, also put on bodies and discard new bodies. Remember, relationships are between physical bodies only. So two jivas are briefly together for some years because of prarabdha. Then one jiva dies, he goes to some loka, and the other jiva dies, he might go to some other loka. In fact, that one jiva might be a human being in the next janma. Even though they were partners for 70 years, in the next life you might find that one of them is a human being, the other one is a crow. You cannot say that you will get the same jiva as a partner in your next life. And there's a nice example given in the Ramayana. I forget the verse. Okay, I try to find it out for you. It says that the essence of the verse is that when two fallen trees are floating in a river, you will find that because of the wind, they come together sometimes. But it is the very same wind which later on separates those two trees. A very beautiful example. What is the wind?
Prarabdha.
Or the karma. Karma brings people together, karma separates them. And therefore, no point telling this to your partner if that partner is also not Vedantic, okay? The best thing in the world to happen to any spiritual seeker is to get a partner who is Vedantic. But I think the Lord has ensures that that is a very, very rare occurrence. And if you have a partner who is Vedantic, then both partners should meditate upon this. This alone will dilute the attachment without taking away the love. And when attachment is diluted, then disturbance caused by attachment goes away. And know that all this thinking has to be done when both husband and wife are living. When grief strikes, it is no time for a Vedanta lecture. Right? When somebody is uh, undergoing some extreme disturbance in mind, don't go and give Vedanta lectures. When somebody dies, don't go and give the surviving partner a Vedanta lecture. Because the time to buy a fire extinguisher is not when the house is on fire. You should buy it and learn to use it when everything is normal. Okay, so now this extreme attachment towards whom, Krishna gives examples. Putra. Putra means son, but you have to add Putri also. Putri means daughter. Son or daughter. Dara. Dara means wife, but you have to say wife oblique husband. Therefore spouse. Graham means your house. And in the Graham you can supply my cat, my dog, my bed, my TV, my AC, my mixer, whatever it is. Everything is there. Why should you avoid attachment? Because if your mind is preoccupied with these things, even if it is your wife and children, which most of us have a preoccupation with, do you have enough objectivity to be able to detach when it is time for Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam? That is the idea. Right? It's not that non-attachment doesn't mean indifference. You have to do your duties. One of the duties is to be loving towards your children and your wife and a husband. That you have to carry on. But do it so that it doesn't become a consuming activity with you. It doesn't consume you at all. Your mind should still be available for Vedanta. Okay. Now, Veda says this in a very oblique way. Veda understands that complete detachment is possible only in the absence of regular contact. Remember that whenever you are again and again meeting some person, attachment will be there. And therefore, for a sannyasi, Veda says you should never stay in one place regularly. Constantly, you have to move. If you're moving constantly, if you're coming across new things and new people and new places all the time, there is no scope for attachment. But none of us are sannyasis. Most of us have got families. And for a person who is a grahastha, householder, your life is interlinked with lots of things, people, things, attachment will be there. So it's not possible for you to follow the Vedic injunction of taking sannyasa. And therefore Krishna says that That is why he says anivishvangaha. Krishna is saying, I don't ask you to avoid attachment, but avoid extreme attachment. Sakti is attachment. Anabhishvangaha is extreme attachment. So he says, you please avoid extreme attachment. You see the difference? Krishna is saying, okay, fine. You're a grihastha, you'll be attached. It's okay. But learn to avoid extreme attachment. How to differentiate attachment and excessive attachment, extreme attachment? Shankara doesn't bother to comment, right? But Anandagiri writes a tika, sub-commentary on Shankara's commentary. And he says, attachment, he says, is mamakara. Mamakara is what? Claiming a thing or a person as mine. He belongs to me, I belong to you, etc. And Anandagiri makes a very nice note. He says that as long as you say that the thing or the person is mine, what are you saying? It's a very fine point. It's a very beautiful piece of thinking by Anandagiri.
Well, it means that the other person, there is other. It's not me.
Means that that person is outside you.
Yes, it's the
And
other.
therefore, even if that person goes away or dies, you are still very much there as a complete person. Your life is there, your journey continues, your life goes on. But he says when the attachment is excessive, then what will happen? That mamakara
Becomes ahankara.
becomes ahankara. And when ahankara happens, then you take whatever happens to that person as happening to yourself. You say, if that person dies, I am also dead. You think your life has no meaning at all without the other person. But the real truth, the objective truth, the bitter truth actually is that everyone's life has got their own meaning. It doesn't matter whether other people are there or not. You may be very, very close to other people, your husband, your wife, your children, your parents. But whether they are there or not, remember that the objective truth of your life is that the purpose is moksha alone. Everyone comes into this world alone. You are never born together. You are never going to die together. Ishvara brings a few people into your life so that your spiritual growth is helped, is assisted. And remember that prarabdha karma will ensure that these people will be around as long as you need them for your growth and they need you for their growth. Once that purpose is served, fulfilled, each jiva has to go on its own path, right? I'm not saying don't cry when you lose somebody close to you. Grief is natural because of attachment. But you should never, never forget that you have your own journey. And therefore, don't let grief become so overwhelming that you lose sight of your spiritual journey. You should never forget. Okay. Then the Nityam cha samachitatvam. Ishtanishto papattish. This is nothing new. We have spoken of it earlier, where long ago, Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tektva Dhananjaya Siddhaya Siddhayo Sama Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Samachitatvam. Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Balanced mind. When Ishtha Anishtha. Ishtha is favorable situations and Anishtha is unfavorable situations. Upapatti means the prapti, the arrival. So on the arrival of favorable situations or on the arrival of unfavorable situations, samachitatvam should be there. Your mind should be undisturbed. And then, it is, you might think, if this ishtha anishtha situation arrives from my neighbor, then my FIR is not disturbed. Right? So I am fulfilling this definition. Because Krishna has not said. And therefore, Shankara very carefully adds sampraptyaha. When these arrive for yourself. Right? He says, it is easy to be a very advanced Vedantins when your neighbors have problems. But do you have that same attitude when it comes to you? That is the idea. So we must remember that Prarabdha ensures that every human being will face favorable and unfavorable situations. What are the methods we have learned? Karma yoga and
Yoga.
Karma yoga is first aid. Ishvara Arpana Prasada Bhavana. Jnana yoga is the cure. Karma yoga is the person on the road who applies first aid and they takes you to the hospital. The hospital does Jnana yoga, which is the final cure. In all these situations, Samachittatvam Nityam, constantly practice balance of mind. Remember that Prarabdha, nobody can stop, right? Dasratha had 4 children, but he died alone. So how can I handle Prarabdha? There are 2 ways. I surrender to the Lord, I am a Karma Yogi. Or I surrender to Jnanam, I am a Jnana Yogi. Other than Bhakti and Jnanam, there is no remedy for Prarabdha problems. So with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your
Om
patience.
Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Thank you, Acharya.